Homemade goat cheese. Welcome to Rain's Kitchen and Garden. I'm Rain, and today I'm sharing a very easy recipe to make goat cheese at home. This recipe has simple steps and delivers a delicious, creamy goat cheese from scratch. Making cheese at home is a great hobby, and it's so rewarding because you have something to eat after your efforts. But you do need specific ingredients and specific equipment. So here's the list of the equipment that you're going to need to make this homemade goat cheese. You'll need a pot large enough to hold whatever amount of milk that you're using. You'll need a thermometer. I like a digital thermometer. I find it much more accurate. Measuring cup, measuring spoons, and if you have them, mini measuring spoons. If you're serious about cheese making, I would invest in these. They're not that expensive, but they can measure tiny, tiny little amounts, like a 1/16 of a teaspoon or a 1/48 of a teaspoon or something like that. They come in very handy for cheese making because a lot of these recipes call for tiny amounts of ingredients. You're going to need a slotted spoon, some butter muslin to drain the cheese. If you have a sturdy cheesecloth, that would work, but most cheesecloth fabrics are too porous. The whey will drain way too quickly, resulting in a flaky, dry cheese. That's why I prefer butter muslin when I'm doing all of my cheeses. You'll also need some twine that's going to be strong enough to hold your cheese up because we're going to be draining it for 7 hours, and it has to be strong enough to hold the cheese. I have butcher's twine here. And you're also going to need a kitchen scale. Here are the ingredients that you'll need to make approximately 1 pound or half a kilogram of goat cheese. For this recipe, you'll need 2 liters or 8 cups of whole fat goat's milk, 1/8 of a teaspoon of meso-B bacterial culture, 1 drop of calcium chloride, and 1 drop of veggie rennet. You'll also need some cheese salt. Now, you don't want to use table salt because it's iodized, and iodine will harm your bacterial culture and it'll interfere with the development of your cheese. Before you begin, I always suggest that you sterilize all of your equipment in boiling water for about 10 minutes. In the description below, I'll leave you links for cheese-making supply stores that are online in Canada and in the US. Now, if you live outside of Canada and the United States, I would suggest that you go onto Google and do a search for online cheese-making supplies stores. So why don't we start making some goat cheese? So the first thing I want to do is heat my milk up to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 25 degrees Celsius. So I've got my 2 liters of goat milk in here, and I'll just turn the burner on. And I've got it on like a medium high. Nothing too high because I don't want to burn the milk. And you can heat it directly on the burner. You don't need a double boiler for this since the temperature of the milk is going to be quite low. So we're looking for 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, as you can see, my milk is at 79 degrees Fahrenheit. 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit isn't a big deal. I would say 1 or 2 degrees Celsius might be a bigger deal, but really I was aiming for 77. I'm okay with 79. Now, I've turned off the burner heat because I definitely don't want it to get hotter. If by chance you heat your milk up too hot, you get to 82, 83 degrees Fahrenheit, what you can do is plug your sink in, fill it a little bit with cold water, and then take your pot, place it into the sink, stir and stir and stir, and monitor the temperature, and it should come down pretty quickly to the temperature that you want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off the stove so that it doesn't get any hotter. All right, so I've measured out 1/8 of a teaspoon of the meso-B bacterial culture, and I'm just going to sprinkle that into my milk. And I'm going to let that sit for 5 minutes so that it will rehydrate itself. Okay, my 5 minutes has passed, and I took my thermometer out because I don't need to monitor the temperature anymore. I just have to stir for a minute. So away I go. We want to make sure that all of that bacterial culture is nice and hydrated into the milk, incorporated very well. And what I'm doing right now is called the cheesemaker's stir, an up and down motion. Because as you're stirring your milk, you want to go back and forth, side to side, right, with the slotted spoon. But you also want to go up and down to make sure that there's no little bits or clumps of bacterial culture kind of sitting in the middle or at the bottom of your milk pot. I learned all that in the cheese making book that I bought. Really fun. My dogs are milling around. Every time I'm in the kitchen, they're in the kitchen. All right, it's been about a minute. Settle down, Benny. So now I'm going to prepare my calcium chloride and my rennet. Now make sure your pot is in a spot where it's not going to be disturbed for 24 hours. Because once we put the rennet in, it's going to start to coagulate. It's going to start the process of building curds. And you don't want to move it during that process because you can upset the curd formation. So I know that this is a good spot for my pot. It's going to stay here for 24 hours. So in these two little dishes here, I have a tablespoon of filtered water in each one. And I've got my little mini measuring spoon. And this one says, can you see that? Wait, over, can you see? It says drop. So I'm looking to put 1 drop of calcium chloride into this water. And I'm mixing it well. I'm just going to wipe that off. And 1 drop of my veggie rennet into the other bowl. That's all it needs. Mix it well. Now we'll start with the calcium chloride. We're going to do the same thing. Basically, we are going to put the calcium chloride in, stir for 1 minute. There are a lot of people up here this weekend, and my dogs are not used to people around, and every time they hear someone on a quad or someone driving by, or I don't know if you can hear that, there's quads happening outside right now, they run to the windows. What's that? What's that? Hey, Benny, what do you see outside? Hey? If you're a good boy, you'll get some goat cheese tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing with the rennet. Now, it's really important that when you put the rennet in, don't stir for more than 1 minute, because 1 minute is like the maximum you should stir with your rennet for this recipe anyway, because if you stir longer, again, it could upset the coagulation process. So I've got a little stopwatch here on the side. Here we go. Inside it goes for 1 minute, and I'm gently, gently stirring it. I always say this, and I will probably repeat it in all of my cheese making videos. When you make cheese, you have to have a gentle touch. I always say the cheese is like a dainty doily. And I learned that from watching that TV show Frasier. If you aren't familiar with it, it's 2 men who are brothers, and they're both psychiatrists, and their father is a police officer, so you can imagine the difference in their personalities. And the father is very rough around the edges, and he's always calling them dainty doilies because they're such snobs, you know. They love their special restaurants, and they throw in French words here and there, and they're very snobby. So whenever I say my cheese is like a dainty doily, it always makes me laugh. Okay. 1 minute. There we go. Now the easy part. The next step is to put the top on. and we're going to let that sit for 24 hours on the counter, undisturbed. And if you want, you could put a towel on top, depending on how cool it is in your house. So it's been 24 hours, and we're going to check on our curds. There are two signs that will tell you that your curd is ready. One is that you'll see it pulling away from the side of the pot, which it's not doing in my case. But if I take a knife and I cut into it, I've got a clean break there. So I'm okay. There's a little bit of curd on the knife, but that's okay. I think it's ready. So what I want to do is cut the curd into about 1/2-inch cubes. Now, what you can do is just take a regular knife. I've just got this icing knife that I got at the dollar store. And you may not be able to see it because I have a little bit of a layer of whey on top, but I'm cutting the curds. And I'm going to do like a checkerboard pattern. It's too bad you may not be able to see it because of the whey on top. We're cutting the curds to encourage more whey to be released. And I usually just do a little bit of a 45-degree angle as well. Here, why don't I lift it? You can see I'm cutting them into cubes here. And I'll do it this way too. Just to make sure that the curd is cut all the way through. Now, I'm sure my cubes are a little bigger than 1/2 inch, but that's okay. I have good success with this cheese. Okay. All right, the next step is draining the curds. I just have a big bowl here, and I have a colander. And I'm going to put that butter muslin into the colander. Now, this has all been sterilized. And I'm going to gently, very gently, transfer my curds into the butter muslin lined colander. Goat milk curds are extremely sensitive. So we do this very gently. And I want to make sure that I always have my edges up because I don't want to lose any of that curd. I just find it so amazing how a couple of liters of milk and some bacterial culture, little rennet, some calcium chloride, turns into cheese. It's magic. It's absolutely magic to me. Sorry for the noise. Get the whole thing in there. It will be very liquidy right now. Don't worry about that, because we're going to drain it after by hanging it, and that's going to get rid of a lot of the whey. And you don't want to lose any of the goat milk itself. That's why we use butter muslin instead of cheesecloth, so that it doesn't drain all the goat product out. Banged my tripod there. Okay, so we've got that all into the butter muslin, and we are on to the next step. Now the next step is to hang the cheese. This is where this very thick twine comes into play. Now, this always takes me a little while because I have a very old piece of butter muslin and it's not quite the best shape for this cheese. So I have to be very careful when I'm tying it all up. So we ask that you bear with us. All right, I doubled it up, okay, doubling it up. And I am going to try my best to lift this up on all sides and not lose any of the cheese inside there. Oops. See, it should be a square, but mine is a rectangle. So I have to be careful. I don't, let one side fall. You see? It's going to drain for 7 hours, but I am going to tie it up now. If you have a second pair of hands, that's handy. Someone can hold it while you tie it. But I don't have a second pair of hands, so I'm going to be very careful. I have plenty of paws in the house, but I'm sure that they would be only interested in eating the cheese, not helping me drain it. So sorry for my hand in the way there. I'm just trying to get the best angle. There, I think I got all the sides up. Okay, now you want to tie it really, really tight. You can cut this off after, but tie it tight because it's going to be hanging, and this is pretty heavy. Make a really tight knot. I double it up because I've seen it fall when I haven't used a strong enough twine. And I gotta tell you, it's heartbreaking to see it fall. Okay, you see, it's sturdy enough to hold the whole thing. I've got all the little pieces of the butter muslin up, so nothing's gonna fall out. Now the next step is to find a place to hang it. So my friends, I wanted to show you the setup that I have. I have on my little oven here, I have my tripod that I normally use for filming, but I had to use it to hang my cheese. And that's why I didn't show you the process that I used, because I had to use my tripod to hang the cheese. But I will get up here on my little step ladder and show you what I did. I basically made a knot with a loop, and I hung it on the side of the tripod here, and it's hanging, and the whey is dripping into a bowl underneath. Okay, so basically I am going to be hanging my cheese for the next 7 hours at room temperature. Now you can get creative. Before I realized that the tripod was one of the best ideas I'd had for hanging this cheese, I used to hang it like on top of, the knobs of my kitchen cabinets, but I like the tripod idea. So 7 hours later, we will meet up again for the next step. Oh, and here is another expert tip. If you have cats, cat-proof the area, because I'm pretty sure all cats are the same when it comes to cheese making and the smell of whey. My cat Oscar here loves the smell and the taste of whey, so I have to really barricade the area if I'm not watching it constantly. My goat cheese has been draining in my little tripod contraption for 7 hours. Now what I'm going to do is just put it in the fridge as is to continue to let it drain a little more. You can check it and look at the texture and see if that's the texture that you like. If you like it as is, then feel free to jump to the next step, which is salting the cheese. I personally like to put it in the fridge overnight so that it drains just a little bit more to get a little more whey out of there. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to salt it tomorrow morning. So I'll just put a piece of, if I can get this out, a piece of cling film on top, just so that it doesn't completely dry out. So that's going to go into the fridge overnight. But like I said, check the consistency. If you like it, jump ahead to the next step. My goat cheese was draining in the fridge overnight, so I'm ready to use it. So I'm basically going to transfer whatever is in here into my little bowl. And so I'm going to have to grab my scissors and cut that twine without cutting my butter muslin. There we go. Get all of that off. Did I cut it all? Oh yes, I made a double knot, that's right. I have to cut that one too. Don't want to cut the butter muslin. There we go. Okay, I can discard that. And this is what's left of 2 liters of goat milk. Look at that. It's really nice. Oh boy, it's got the consistency of cream cheese. How beautiful. I don't want to lose any of it because goat milk is kind of pricey. But you know what? It's much easier on the digestion, at least for me, than cow milk. I still eat cow milk cheese, and I will do some videos for you on the cheeses that I make. But I wanted to show you this one first because it's super easy and it might get you interested in cheese making, knowing how easy it is. So I'll start off with the easy ones and then we'll get to the more complicated ones. So look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, let's weigh the cheese. And it weighs 394 grams. This recipe usually gives me anywhere from around 400 to around 500 grams. So I'm going to round that up to 400 just because it's easier. And the idea for salting is that you want to add, the recipes call for 1% of the weight in grams, okay? So if we say this is 400 grams of cheese, ideally you would put in 4 grams of cheese salt. I tried that at the beginning. I didn't like it that salty, so I cut that in half. So basically what I'm doing is, let's say this is 400 grams. We're rounding it up to 400 grams. 1% of 400 grams is 4 grams. And in my case, I'm dividing that in 2. So I'm only going to put 2 grams of salt into my cheese. So let me get a spoon here. I'm measuring the salt separately because I don't want it, you know, sometimes if you put too much and then it goes right into your dish, it's hard to take it out. So I'm just going to get, see, there you go. That's 5. If I had put that directly into my cheese, that would have been a mistake. That's 3. That's still 3. Let me start all over again here. We're at 0. And there's 2. Okay. And I have my gloves on because I'm going to do this by hand. It's much easier to put the to mix the salt into the cheese by hand, believe me. Oh, it is like a cream cheese. Very, very nice. Make sure that salt is really, really incorporated well, because you don't want to have one piece of cheese that's like really salty. All right, that's great. So I'm going to show you something fancy. I'm just going to clean up and I'll be right back. Normally, if it's just for me, I would leave it in the bowl, stick it in the fridge, and just use it that way. But I wanted to show you something a little fancy. This is a bamboo mat that I got at the dollar store. Nothing fancy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some cling film on there. Just over the top here. And I'm going to put some of that goat cheese in there. Not too much. Looks like ice cream. Doesn't it? Looks like ice cream. There we go. And I'm going to roll it so it's going to get that nice texture on it. And as I'm rolling, I better make sure that I don't want the cheese to touch the bamboo. I just want the bamboo to give it texture. So there we go. I'm rolling it and I'm squishing it at the same time so it turns into a cylinder. And I'm going to put this in the fridge overnight, and I'll show you what it looks like tomorrow. This cheese will be nice and fresh for 10 days in the fridge, from the day you drain it at room temperature. Now, goat cheese pairs very well with nuts and fruits, and it's delicious in salads and even as a topping on pizza. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please give it a like and please do subscribe. If you don't want to miss out on future videos, don't forget to hit the notification bell for more home cooking. Don't forget to leave me a comment. I love your comments, my friends, and I do reply to all of them. And please share this video with anyone you might think will enjoy it. Thanks again for watching, my friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.